changed it right here, Adrian, on everybody's sheet. Yeah. Like I said, I'm not the best substitute, but. Okay, so I guess then it's amended. I'll second that. And also approval of the minutes for the December 13th meeting.
Second that.
Make the motion.
You don't need seconds, it's just somebody has to.
Oh, okay.
And then everybody has to vote. So,
Oh, yeah, that's a lot better.
I don't know that we have any subcommittee reports unless, I know we had talked about the Zoe, the AmeriCorps position and options for her to work on. If you want to talk about that, we can here. Otherwise, I don't think we have any updates.
I shared some feedback with Coral just earlier today.
Do you want to discuss that now?
Yeah, I was just kind of hoping to introduce or create a connection between what we're doing and what Zoe's doing with the YMCA Food Distribution Center, which we recently moved to Riverside Drive from the downtown location. So I'm not sure all that can entail, but I think there's something there that we could build on.
Is it in Woodfin? Where is it?
Yes, sir. It's just at the Riverside Drive, the complex at the bottom of the hill, the brick, kind of an industrial building. Yeah, the old mill. Thank you. So they do packing and distribution that covers not only Buncombe County, but some surrounding counties as well. I believe 4 counties in total.
And is there anything else? So would you like to? And the wave management subcommittee?
We don't have any updates on that one.
Okay. And then new business, Silverline Park update?
Hello, everybody. It's good to see you again. I recognize most of you from the Riverside master planning process. So as we wait for this to come up, we're going to present to you today our preliminary understanding and concept sketches for Phase 2 for Silverline. This includes the restroom facility and pickleball courts and pedestrian circulation amenities. So just to introduce you, this is not the master plan. We're just looking for some input based on our initial findings. We've done some grading studies, and I wanted to present to you some of the findings that we had regarding the floodplain. No, that's fine. So I'll just keep going. So because of the 100-year floodplain, all structures have to be 2 feet above base flood elevation. And so what that means is that the restroom facility is going to have to be about approximately in the area, well, 1954 is about the average elevation of that park, and the restroom facility is going to have to be at 1961, so it's about 7 feet higher. Wow. And so, you know, as designers, instead of having kind of a restroom on a hill, right? We're proposing some earthwork in what was the old 40,000 square foot building location that's been taken down. And as soon as we can start getting some images up, then I can proceed further.
Were you just bringing the bill for the, from outside,
From the Riverside site,
for the elevated restroom, will you bring, will it be Phil? You say you're bringing
we're gonna have to bring in Phil, yeah.
outside?
From off-site, yes. Yeah. That's perfectly fine, yeah. You can go to the next, yeah, just go down a page. Okay, so we have our existing parking, as you can see in the aerial there, and then our Phase 2 location. Now, that's not to say that, the restroom couldn't have been anywhere on site. The restroom could have been anywhere on site. But our ideal and also, as you can see, by putting it towards screen left of that Phase 2 area, the restroom facility would be closest to the playground, the train platform, and the future pickleball courts. So to be kind of in a central location. So
And is that accessible parking there, where that's at?
that is currently accessible parking, which would be adjacent to where we're proposing the restroom. If you go to the next slide, you can see. There you go. The restroom there, what we're showing here is just a sketch of the master plan as we are projecting it moving towards, obviously considering your comment. But the restroom facility, to get up, what we're looking at here is kind of 3 tiers. So you have additional parking, page right, and then what you can see is white there with that pavement. As you progress further, you see the pavement as gray. We're proposing that's new pavement. So what we're proposing is, and you can see this when Holden presents the sections in a little bit, we're proposing lifting that whole area up. Instead of putting a restroom on a mound, we're proposing kind of lifting that whole area where the building was up and tiering it so that it's more gradual and not like a really drastic rise of 7 feet. And so what that is you've got these 2 pickleball courts, standard pickleball court size, and then you've got what we're calling the championship court, which would be on the next tier, and that is your ADA-sized pickleball court. A few feet, basically as kind of pyramid style, and then you have an additional pickleball court. Now, what we're showing here is ADA accessibility from those ADA spots that kind of come up from that spot to the restrooms, and then it works its way back down to the parking lot. And you can go to the next slide. So this kind of just blows up into that location, calling out everything I just said. And in addition to that, we're proposing some circulation, as a master plan, not obviously in the first phase, but some additional boardwalks to get that boardwalk you can see on the bottom left side of the sheet, getting easy access from the playground area to the restroom facilities and the pavilion. So let's say you're using the playground and you need to make a quick jettison over to the restroom. You're not necessarily having to walk along the road and around. You can cut right through the wetland, very similar to the other boardwalk that we have on there. And then we've included an additional boardwalk, basically, if you're coming from the river. You come up the river, the boat put in, and then you come straight across the street and then use that boardwalk instead of walking through the parking lot.
Is that wall in front of the ADA court the only wall?
Yeah, it's a 2 to 3 foot wall, and what that because we were instructed to include an ADA pickleball court, and the courts need to generally run north to south so that no single players looking into the sun, especially if the town of Woodfin's wanting to have any sort of tournament-style pickleball court. The courts generally have to run this way. They can't run east-west. And that's kind of the only way we could fit in the ADA pickleball court was to narrow the road a little bit to 12 feet, since it's a one-way road anyway. We figured we can narrow that road since we're repaving that piece, and then have a small little stem wall that's approximately 2 to 3 feet. That's the only wall that we foresee.
All those pickleball courts will have like chain link fence around them, I guess. Is that what you do with pickleball courts?
Yeah, so you'll see in the section, portions of the pickleball court will be fenced higher, portions that in front of the viewing areas will be fenced lower.
Got it.
That's pretty standard, yeah.
I've got a question. Is there the grade of each slope and the ADA accessible ramp going around, are there regulations on how steep they can be?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, go to the next one. All right, so this is kind of our accessibility map and then circulation map. So you can see in the blue dotted lines, those are the ADA accessible. Those are under 5% slope, with the exception of, and I'll point on your screen since you're this way. Exception of right here, you are allowed to go above 5% on a slope as long as you have handrails for a certain distance. That's the only section we're going to have handrails, but the rest of it is non-handrail, so it's all lower than 5%. And then the magenta color is basically kind of those terraced viewing areas. Kind of imagine they're like 18-inch step where people can sit. Obviously, those portions aren't accessible. You kind of have to go use that main path. You gotta use this main path kind of to get down to each court. And you go back a slide, and what we wanted to kind of show you is another option. I know we've heard some people talk about wanting to have some additional swings, other play elements, since the playground is relatively small because of the overhead utilities that were in the existing playground area. So we wanted to show an option where there was 3 courts, because the brief was 3 to 4 courts, and then that additional area could be used for additional play. So some rock scrambles, some swings, maybe a slide on the slope, so that, let's say, a family's going to play pickleball, and the parents are playing pickleball, and the kids are wanting to play right next to them instead of having to go across the street or across the wetland. So we just wanted to pose in front of you a couple different options for that space. And then Holden's kind of describe the sections, which kind of reiterates what I said as far as the grade goes. Yeah,
Board 2.
2 slides.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So these are some section drawings that we hope really give you a better idea of how the topography is working between all the courts and pavilions. So like Jason said, there's about 3 tiers, and you can see all the kind of beige coloring there is what would be proposed fill. So that bottom line that's black is the existing grade, and everything would be put on top of it. So you can begin to imagine right here where you can see the pavilion structure, how like profound that would be if it were just a mound by itself. And it would basically, we started calling it like a castle on a hill, but you don't necessarily want to see a restroom on, it's just not something that you want to be so visible, so obvious on your site. So we're proposing softening it and interspacing courts within that raised topography zone to give you those kind of tiered seating elements that naturally work into the landform, but also provide a lot of like comfortable, easily accessible seating to view the courts. So this section that you're showing here is running from west to east. So on the left side, you have your existing ADA parking, the road that's exiting the site. And then on your right, your screen right, that's the additional parking that we're going to add. In between these spaces, there's a lot of interstitial plantings, some stormwater control management areas, and I think you can see it works pretty naturally with itself, kind of undulating the grade and giving birth to that highest 1,961 foot finished floor elevation we need for our restroom. If you continue forward a slide. this is the second concept with the playground. So instead of that fourth court on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see there's more of an embankment. So the features that you could include could be a slide, a rock scramble, some logs. It's, like Jason was saying, just a play area that's nestled right beside the courts, so that you might want to have part of your family playing on the pickleball courts, but some other of your kids may want to be on the playground, and that's just a very easily visible view shed for both, and it again expands the play entities on the park as well. And that's the only thing that changes between the last slide. And if you could go one more forward. So this is the north to south section. So immediately on your right, you'll see the craggy line right there. So basically we're filling up to the point that the railroad ties are already laid at. So you can begin to imagine that that road where you're exiting would go up and then back down to give birth to that, again, 1,961 foot finished floor elevation we need of our restroom structure. And you can also see the embankment that would be formed leading down to the existing wetlands. So all this is pretty much within the existing footprint of the building that was recently demolished. But I hope that this has given you a pretty good idea of how to soften that pretty profound topography increase that we need for the restroom, which is very unavoidable. So if you have any questions, we'd love to hear them.
I think Gerald was alluding to one about the fill itself. Is when the wave gets put in, there's going to probably be some fill there. Is that suitable fill? Have we gotten that far in the thought process yet? Is the timing going to be right? Does anybody know?
So none of that's going to be suitable. It's all going to have to be hauled off. It's all landfill debris, as far as we can tell
Okay.
from geotechnical studies.
I think what you're doing is a good way, pretty imaginative, to make that grade change. Not like the playground better than another pickleball court, but then I'm not a pickleball player yet, so I may change my mind in 6 months.
I'm guessing that the playground will be cheaper than another pickleball court?
I would imagine so, yes. Pickleball court, just the paving alone for the courts and the footings, I would say would be more expensive than the more natural play.
Is anybody a pickleballer? Does anyone play all the time that's in this room that knows like how many courts are usually at a spot, or how like is 3 courts not enough, or is it too crowded with just 3, or?
Chris might know with Asheville
Yeah,
City.
so all of our courts in Asheville are shared courts, so they're lined for
Of
both
tennis,
tennis
yeah.
and pickleball. And the spots that are the most popular are the ones that have, like 3 tennis courts and 6 pickleball courts on them, because it usually is a big crowd. So before we dual lined all of them, if there were 2 tennis courts, then there would only be one that was dual lined, and people didn't particularly like to go to those because you could only play 2 games at a time. And so it's definitely the merrier with it, because they do sort of like rotate in and out with each other
Okay.
and stuff like that. And in terms of younger kids who play with playground stuff, and you may have like a better perspective on this, because having these elements separate from the other one, where you've got like this kind of like big ship over here, and then just like a slide and I think a rock scramble and swings, is just in terms of like what kids want to do and stuff like that. I kind of imagine kids are always going to still be playing on like the big play area, but like I said, you may have a more perspective with that. There was a really big trend a few years ago for playgrounds to be like stuff for younger kids over here, stuff for older kids over here, and even like exercise equipment or something for parents in the middle. But the younger kids always want to be doing what the older kids are doing, so they don't want to play on the stuff that's like appropriate for a 3 to 5 year old. They want to be on the stuff that's more appropriate for like a 10-year-old.
So I wonder what the demand is for pickleball. Weaverville just put in a number of new courts. There's some up in Marsville. Ones, just thinking the ones in reasonable proximity, I think at a park there at Norwood Park.
Yeah, and we're definitely seeing like one of the big trends that happened last year was pickleball had kind of been like retirees for the most part, and now it is getting much younger. Like they're teaching it in elementary schools and colleges and stuff like that. So it's definitely still continuing to grow. Tennis, roller skating, skateboarding, like everything is continuing to grow. People are just getting a lot more active. So, so there's lots of different ways that you can use space.
So when we look at these plans and the options, at what point does cost come into play? Because I love what I see, but then I wonder like how, or to what extent this is feasible for us and what we're looking to do. Because when I look at it, I love it, and then one of the first things that I start to see is what are the potential cutbacks? So I don't know where we sit in that realm, fiscally.
Well, and you definitely have, if you're looking at it long term as well, kind of natural play elements will have a lifespan of like 15 to 20 years with kind of minimal general maintenance. Pickleball courts will need to be resurfaced on a regular, like kind of 4 or 5 year schedule. And there may be some, replacing nets and things like that too. So it may be worth looking at sort of like a long-term maintenance of it in addition to like what the upfront cost is too.
And Jason, do you guys have an estimate for the bill? Any idea?
We have not done any cost estimating for this. No, I will say we are tasked with moving forward with construction documents for a phase 1, which would just be the restroom facility, but we would recommend that as part of that, the earthwork be done so that you have sort of like a tier, like, mounded up to the restroom, and then the facilities could then just be constructed on top of that. But that's how we would recommend it, was that the earthwork be part of the restroom.
I got a question about the championship court.
Yeah.
Can we go back to that?
See the
One of the
plan?
slides? Yeah.
Okay.
And it's about viewing of it. I just want to be sure if there were to be an event there, is there space for, like I see the 3 tiers looking at the small courts, but the upper court, is there enough seating there for it to be
So
viewed at an event?
and if we went back to the section, you could see this. So that middle, I guess, tiered seating between the smaller courts and the larger court kind of comes up, and there is seating on the
On
facing.
both sides, yeah.
There's seating facing both sides, and then there on the left of the page, there is seating for the center court on the left side, and then from the pavilion as well.
So from one of the plans, I felt like I saw that right here, excellent. So I'm seeing like 2 tiers of seating looking to, South River, onto those 2 courts, but there does seem to be less seating facing the championship court.
There's the one level of seating from both directions, basically, yeah.
And what is that? Are we looking at, as far as the length,
You know how long it is?
60, 40?
I was about to say 60 feet.
There's a scale bar on there, so you can begin to estimate.
Oh, no, how long they were. Might be plan view.
And then looking to that to see like how many bodies could
Right.
potentially sit there.
Yeah, so based on the scale bar, I'd say they're approximately 60 feet.
Mhm.
And could that 2 to 3 foot wall also include seating in terms of like how thin is that wall going to be?
Oh, that's a great question. So that wall currently is on the court side, that would be at grade, but we could lift the wall and have it be a seat wall from that edge as well. That's a great point.
So that would be on the baselines of the pickleball courts, is that correct?
On this side.
Okay, yeah.
Only on this
Okay.
Yeah, so
so
like
the
this,
base- okay.
this wall right here that's retaining,
Mhm.
keeping it out of the wetland, we could lift that up so that it was 18 inches above grade on court side,
Mhm.
so that people could use it as a seat wall. And that way you would get seating, all the way here,
Mhm.
around here, and then along here.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great idea.
What's the little polygon?
That's stormwater. Yeah, we're gonna need somewhere to treat the stormwater runoff. So what we have is we've increased the wetland over here for these courts. We've have this little area for these two roofs, and then we've kind of just have a treated swale over here. We extended this for this court.
It looks great. Are we sitting with any questions that we need to address or kind of share input on in particular when we're looking at this?
What's next, Adrian?
I mean, ultimately, we're gonna have one master plan, so, what we would like to do is just incorporate any comments you have on these two sketches, and we can combine, or we can pick, obviously, the playground versus the fourth pickleball court. You guys can take what time you need to decide that, and then we'll address the comment about the seat wall, and any other comments that you may wanna send our way, so that we can produce one master plan document.
Yeah, looking at it from this, if the picnic shelter, is gonna have that height above the two courts that are adjacent to it as well, if we were looking at doing something like tournaments, that could also have temporary bleachers underneath it because the height of what it is, and you'd be able to, but you would have to have that other pickleball court over here to kind of like have viewing in both directions, which is why I kind of lean towards the fourth court. I just separating the playground, I've just never really seen that where both of those get activated in other places. But also, if we don't have swings there now, swings are kind of like a standard for a playground, and I know they take up a lot of space for the fallout area and stuff like that, but.
Right, if there's going to be something that will activate the space, I would think it would be swings.
Well, and.
They're loved by all ages.
Well, and having like a slide that kind of follows the slope of it and stuff too, I think that those are like absolutely the coolest way to do slides, and kids really get into them. I'm thinking, I don't know if you've ever been to Montford Community Center.
Yeah.
Like the way they've used that
Great
space
slide.
and stuff like that, that's what I'm kind of imagining for that area. And so I think if you have enough elements, then kids are gonna be all over it.
Those are two great options. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So can we get a copy of the slideshow?
Absolutely.
And then make any further comments by when?
Let me send an email to you. I don't have our project schedule
Okay.
in front of me right now, but I can just send you an email, and we would be hoping to have those comments by.
Yeah, I think it'd be the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay.
within 1 to 2 weeks.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. And up next is the community garden proposal. Excuse me.
Hi, thank you.
So you're assuming like questions, comments about the pickleball layout? Those just being an offline kind of conversation? Sure, you can. We need to go ask them the questions.
Yeah, I think he's going to,
Thank you so much.
And then shoot.
and then respond to them probably within a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Roughly. I think both plans are great. I like it.
The interesting thing that you bring up too, I mean, I have kids that are,
I forgot we got
3 and 5.
Yeah, actually, you got kids.
3 and 5. But the other thing is, if you're playing pickleball and your kid is playing over here, they're gonna have to cross a road where cars drive to get to that other place. That's sad.
Yeah, it'd be cool if they could swim underneath the thing.
Additional color.
Yeah,
photos,
like-
kind of some inspirational.
But I don't think that like having
Thank you.
3 versus 4.
Fancy, yeah, you guys.
Right,
This is
yeah.
awesome.
Like pickleball,
Thank
like,
you.
oh, we can have like 4 more people playing basically.
Hello, we're the Woodfin Community Garden Steering Committee. And Zoe Codd also has been helping us a little bit. My name's Katie.
And I'm Lily, and we're both Woodfin homeowners, and we've been working on this project. Really, Katie got started with it and was the original inspiration for almost 2 years now. I slowly put some things in the works, so we've appeared before the town council before, and we've reached out to various people and had some promising leads and fall throughs, trying to find a location for the community garden. And Adrian reached out and approached us about the possibility of Geneva Maney Park being a site for the community garden. And so we've got a proposal for you guys to consider.
Yeah. And from our communications, we learned that the Geneva Maney Park is highly underutilized as a playground park. And so knowing that we've been looking for a site for a community garden, it was suggested we present to you the proposal of turning that into a community garden space. And our vision for that is that part of it would be an allotment style garden beds where community members would pay a very small fee to grow their own vegetables or herbs or flowers there. And then another portion of it would be like a community space where we would grow things that could be shared with the community, with gardeners, or just people who are in need. We also see this as a place that could be for bringing people together in the community, for educational opportunities, and just, an opportunity to increase the well-being of Woodfin residents.
Yeah, there's a lot of residents of Woodfin who do face food insecurity. There's also a lot of residents that live in, compact housing or apartments or mobile homes where they may not have a yard or a space to grow their own fruit and vegetables. So this would provide an opportunity for that. There are a lot of different unique community garden spaces around Buncombe County, but there aren't any in Woodfin. And I think this would be a unique take on community gardens incorporating a variety of purposes. On the first page of the proposal, there's a visual that Katie created based on some survey results. So Katie sent out several surveys and tried to reach Woodfin residents in a variety of ways through paper flyering and posting on the town Facebook page and promoting through other groups. And the majority of the respondents all supported all of these purposes. So being able to grow produce for their own household, being able to create a space that's friendly to wildlife with pollinator plants, hopefully contributing to growing crops that could be shared with neighbors in need, but also a space to maybe teach or learn, depending, and kind of build community. So I think it could be a great hub and community space, bring a lot more people together than are currently using it. And Katie's aunt, who is not a Woodfin resident but has been very supportive of our project, helped create this rendering. This is not a set in stone design. This is a possible concept. She's got some experience designing some community garden spaces and kind of added some components that she felt like might fit. So this would give you an idea of what the space might look like, but there would be definitely some flexibility within that.
It's, as you can see on the map page, it is a kind of odd-shaped parcel of land, but we think that could actually work pretty well. The site is actually situated in a way that it will get full sun, so it'd be a really great place for growing food crops. And it's also relatively flat, which is a unique thing for Woodfin, so that would make it also a little bit easier for installing a garden.
Yeah, and the existing maple tree that's in kind of the far corner provides a shady area where people could sit, which it's nice to have a shady location in a space where people might be out working in the sun. We also really like that it's already fenced in. We want the community garden to be a place where families could come and children could, play and interact and learn, or just kind of hang out where their parents gardened. So having that already fenced in space kind of brings some security and makes it more family friendly. I was gonna say, for a lot of what we want to accomplish in terms of infrastructure, we plan on bringing budget funds from other sources. So we've got a budget table, and so our estimated total, we think, to get off the ground, starting the first year, we need at least $3,500. We would love to have up to $7,250. We've got a more detailed budget that we've been working with Bountiful Cities on. Already, we are part of a Buncombe County Tipping Point grant that's been submitted with Bountiful Cities. And there are several other grants that we plan to apply for once we get formal approval from the town, if we do going forward. So we're kind of asking the town to just kind of remove the playground equipment and get the site ready for us. And then we're going to bring in outside funding to create the garden infrastructure, and grant funding for kind of ongoing support. So after a one-time investment, it'll really serve the community with very low input or cost from the town.
I saw in your plan, you've got a lot of hose racks and hose bibs, which is pretty good. An excellent thing. Is the park already plumbed for those? Because I didn't see the cost on you, but.
Yeah, so our understanding is that there was once a water fountain at that park, and so it shouldn't be too much trouble or expense for the town to install
Have you
a spigot.
talked to a plumber recently?
I haven't, but
I have.
yeah, if we could have at least one
Yeah.
spigot.
And that's what I was going, one
That's
shared
what I'm
should
thinking.
work fine if it becomes an expense time.
Yeah, so just, one-time spigot installation would be one of the things that we'd ask the town for, to make sure also that it was done up to town code. It wasn't something that we would want to, look for a residential plumber, because it's, a project that needs to be done well.
Yeah.
We do have kind of a list of site preparation requests, removing the old playground equipment and the black plastic mulch barriers. There is some old kind of degrading landscape fabric on the site that's been put down below some existing mulch. And we were concerned about that remaining, and that those plastics degrading into soil that we'd be using to grow food. So our thought was, as the playground equipment is removed, they're gonna have to do some grading to kind of reflatten the site out. And while they store garden tools and equipment. It would be locked, and be accessible to garden volunteers. And so that, purchasing the shed, something we would do with budget funding, we would just need approval or a permit as appropriate from the town. We do plan on budgeting for signage, but just, we'd like for you guys to work with us to make sure whatever signage we has fits within the requirements and the style of what the town would like. In terms of ongoing support, pretty minor. We would hope the town would help us promote community garden events on the town website and social media, and perhaps include events in the town newsletter when that got sent out. kind of the biggest ongoing ask is that a portable toilet, a porta potty, be placed in that parking lot, not year-round, but during the growing season, so that volunteers, sometimes you might be out working in the garden for several hours, if we wanted to host a workshop, that people would have access to that. We would have the spigot for hand washing, so just a standalone porta potty would make a really big difference. And as they do now, providing trash and recycling services and just mowing, at this point, they're mowing the whole thing, but just outside of the fence boundary would be the only kind of mowing maintenance.
And then providing trash and recycling receptacles that would be emptied regularly. And if it was possible, to get some sort of a wholesale cost on mulch, because we would need mulch on an annual basis, but it wouldn't be something we'd ask the town to pay for. It was just if there was an opportunity to get like a wholesale pricing on that, we would appreciate that support too.
What questions do you guys have for us?
Just one, you said you would like to get the town to mulch it. Been involved in two formations of two community gardens, one in Montfort about 30 years ago and one in Cullowhee about 10 years ago. And plowing, in Cullowhee, we plowed and this site before putting the mulch down.
I think it's a great idea. And as the greenways go in by the river, I think that park is going to see even less traffic, and I think it's a great idea.
A couple things we've talked about over the past year, maybe year plus, is the community garden. And I appreciate your passion towards it, and you've stuck with it. We've talked about, proposed community garden, and we've also talked about, what to do with this park. So, just to, my blind eyes, I love the idea of, merging these two ideas together. And it also goes back to another thought that I had, that if you're potentially removing a playground here that is not seeing a lot of use, that maybe going back to the Silver Line conversation, making that 3 courts and having a playground there. I know that it doesn't always work that seamlessly, but that's where my head went with that.
Silverline is my nephew's new favorite park, so I think that's where everybody's going now.
How would you manage I'm sorry.
One more question, and I'm not trying to kind of continually harp on the water situation, but if we did, let's say if the water fountain area, if that was feasible, is it adequate enough for a community garden of this size to have that one?
Oh, yeah. One water source is fine, and we would ask that a spigot be installed that could be locked just to prevent any tampering or use outside of, garden appropriate use. But in our budget is like a couple 100-foot hoses, and so we could hook up and garden. And I think something that we've both done in our own gardening is thinking about water conservation practices with the garden. So using mulching, we would, with our shed, try to do some rainwater catchment with the shed as well. But I think, with the allotment style, there might be people coming and going at different times. We would have some watering cans as well, so that if people wanted to do some small watering. So there might be some busy days where someone maybe waits for a hose, but we're not anticipating those sprinklers running for hours, more kind of water conservative hand watering of individual plants as needed.
Another obvious takeaway that you mentioned early on was the amount of sunlight that this park would get at that location.
Yeah, it's
great.
pretty perfect, full sun and one shady spot, yeah.
I think, speaking about the water situation, my thought was that there would definitely need to be more spigots than one, but if you're going to take one spigot out of the ground, it would be super easy to have 2 taps on that one spigot and start with that.
Yeah,
And then
2 hoses.
see how that goes, and then how much is needed in the future, and then determine whether or not there needs to be more added.
Yeah, it's a great point.
How will you manage requests for bid? first come, first.
Yeah, so we've done a little bit of brainstorming and figured we'd work on developing basically an application for people and kind of on a first come, first serve basis. And, you know, but limiting to like one bed per household unless there was extras left over. A small fee, we've thought about like sliding scale of maybe like 10 or 20 to $50, asking people to kind of basically pay what they can.
And then
For the year.
we do have, you know, from our surveys over the last year and a half, we have a list of like 46 people who have expressed interest in a community garden. And so I would say like, probably like we would go to those people first and say, there's an opportunity, are you still interested? And then, go from there to the greater community. I feel like that's fair. They've like
Yeah.
stuck in there with this long period.
Which of you will be the enforcer for those folks who are leads better than Dutch?
Yeah, so I think part of the agreement would be that people would cultivate it for at least the summer growing season, and keep it cleaned up and put it going out into walkways, so some sort of conversation. If there ends up being a garden that becomes neglected, or, you know, maybe you offer, you're like, hey, if this is a hard year, would you want someone to basically, you know, try it out for a year? Could someone use your garden bed for a year, and we'd let you revisit?
And you also had a really great idea of like, as part of sort of getting an allotment bed, you agree to spend X amount of hours per year helping us maintain the communal areas. So, I mean,
Yeah.
with enough people, it, you know, could easily be maybe the equivalent of a day, a year, you know, that you would be doing that,
That
so.
would be a fun thing, rewarding.
Yeah, like a volunteer
Yeah,
day,
yeah.
yeah.
Have we thought about, or have you ladies thought about the idea, pardon me, of sponsorships around some of these beds? You know, like Ace
Absolutely.
Hardware in
Yeah.
North Asheville and things of
Talked
that
about,
nature.
yeah, sponsorships for some of the beds and like the more community area where we would have, you know, a little bit more flexible growing, and probably like, I think probably every Saturday in the growing season, have people come that want to contribute to the community area. So having local businesses sponsor beds, or we want to get some picnic tables, and if we don't get the top amount of our budget, that's something we're like, all right, we'll have a business sponsor picnic table, maybe we could have their name painted or like wood burned on the picnic table. I mean, we've got, 2 breweries within a mile. I mean, surely they could sponsor a picnic table.
Beer for the gardeners.
What?
Bring beer for the gardeners.
Yeah, that too, yeah. Yeah, so we're absolutely hoping to reach out and get sponsorships and contributions from local businesses. We have a beginning list of community partners on the last page. We've been working with, especially with Bountiful Cities, and they're helping us with the Tipping Point grant, and have provided some expertise as well. get some inspiration and
Yeah, accessibility definitely is on our radar, and, you know, we included some pictures of some different styles of raised beds that would be more convenient.
And I have like 3 sheets of graph paper at home with this shape where I have multiple different versions and like, you know, one of them, I've got like a little accessible bed area, like right in the entrance, kind of thinking about some beds that could be accessed and gardened by somebody in a wheelchair. But I think we've got some flexibility with that community space. Yeah, definitely thinking about accessibility is important.
I appreciate the thought that you put into this. Your site plan looks awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
What's the next step?
Well, we need you guys to say yes. And
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would request that the committee make a formal recommendation to council on this idea and the use of Geneva Maney for this, so we can have that on the books when we do discuss this option with them.
So moved.
I like the community garden in this spot. I think it's a great idea, personally.
Same.
Yeah, I do too. How do we make a formal recommendation to the committee?
Makes a motion and then everyone
I
approves.
motion for the community garden.
I thought I already did.
I second that. I third that.
Aye.
Aye.
100%.
I like your heart splitter.
Zoe, you're up.
Hello, hello. What? Oh, okay, okay.
Hey, Zoe, really quickly, I wonder if any of that playground equipment could be used, like if we decide to go with 3 courts, if any of that playground equipment could be just moved.
From Geneva Manning.
No, you don't want
Yeah, okay.
It's not,
Okay.
it's not safe anymore. It's seen its life.
I
was,
was there with them and it's.
Everybody said no straight away.
Stuff.
There are programs where they send old playgrounds to like developing countries, but I don't know if they even take it.
Okay. Just a thought.
Okay, well, hello. I am here to talk about the potential for a Parks Ambassador program. So yeah, let's just get started. So what is an ambassador? So generally, it can be used in many different contexts, but an ambassador is someone who is tasked with aiding an organization or like company or local government in raising awareness and building public and community engagement around a certain topic, issue, event, product, place, idea, campaign, etc. So yes, it can be used in so many different contexts, but like in my experience, like for example, I was a brand ambassador when I worked for a vertical hydroponic company, and I would walk around and field market for them. But in the context of, like, I helped to run a campaign for heat pumps when I worked for Cincinnati, and we had digital ambassadors who disseminated the information for us to the public about the campaign. So I wanted to differentiate between an ambassador and a volunteer because That's a big thing. I'm all about language, and when somebody is going to apply it to do something, you know, a lot of times ambassadors are compensated for their time. A lot of times ambassadors have more work than a volunteer does. A volunteer is more just like on, typically a recurring basis, but it's usually like a single event or something like that. But an ambassador, I'm going to be sending y'all the slideshow as well as a sheet with examples of these programs, so we can just take notes, see what we like, what we don't like, so that we can figure out what would be best for Woodfin. So the first example is the city of Greene, Ohio. The purpose of their program is to assist their Parks and Rec division with their services, events, programs, and advocacy for the city. Their ambassadors are on a volunteer basis. So when you go to the page, it says volunteer ambassador program. That's going to be a whole thing that I need. I definitely need a little assistance helping figure that out. But these ambassadors provide a visual presence in the parks, so they go to the parks, they hand out information to park visitors, they promote stewardship and advocacy. And then the goals of this program were to increase community ownership of the area that they live in, of their community, and promote natural resource stewardship. And then the goal overall for, I guess, for the city would be to like maintain their operations on a higher level than they are now without with the community. So like without their own resources, basically. And then, oh yeah, that one was all ages, no compensation. I forgot to mention that. And then this one is in Bloomington, Indiana. There's a 2-year commitment minimum. It's ages 18 and up. Requirements with weekly visits to parks. You know, the ambassadors document maintenance needs, interact with park users, promote safety and positive use of public space. You know, it's the goals were kind of similar to the one before, but I really like this one because it talks about bridging the communication between the Parks and Rec department and the community. And I think that's super important because, like, in order for people to want to help the parks, they have to know who they're helping behind the scenes. So I feel like that's important to acknowledge and address. And then, you know, encourage proactivity. I didn't necessarily like the language of this one. It didn't really use much sustainable geared language. It wasn't really like, let's help nature. It was more like, let's, you know.
It's Indiana.
Yeah. Bloomington's cool though. It has a fair amount of nature. I like it there. But yeah, this one's good because I liked it was more structured than the green one was. I like how there's more structure. I feel like a lot of the parks programs that I analyzed when in my research, none of them had for real structure, and I want to know what the results of their programs were, you know? And then this one is an interesting one because it's on a very small scale. So essentially it takes you to the page if you go click on the ambassador program page, and it's like a reporting system basically. So anybody can do it, which is pretty cool. It basically, you just take a picture of the problem that you see at a park and you just submit it to the town. So I think that's pretty cool. I feel like that would be a great way to address maintenance issues, and, do those sort of things. It's like because the county says that they don't want you to fix the issue because they'll fix it, just tell us about it. And it just provides an easy way to do that. So, I have some recommendations, just for from my own development because I came up with a whole thing that we could possibly use if this all works out, but I'm also kind of midway through working through that. It's not fully developed yet, but some ideas for leadership, because there will have to be some sort of people in charge of this program, right? So there will have to be somebody who just oversees the entirety of the operation. There will have to be somebody who coordinates communications, disseminates all of the trainings and marketings for the ambassadors to use themselves and for them to use for the public. Yes. And then aside from that, there will be someone who has to create forms and things for the ambassadors to use to collect data, because that's what we will need for it to have any efficacy, because how are we going to know if any impact is being made if nothing's being collected? So surveying, things like that are going to be important in this process. And then the program structure recommendations that I have, I think it would be a great idea to go about it in a way where ambassadors are grouped by demographics. So we would have potentially high school student groups, and then college student groups, and then just general community member groups, because the information can be tailored to more heavily influence each one. So if a college or high school student gets the same thing as a mom receives, they're not gonna have the same pull to it typically. It's really difficult to create comprehensive draw, I guess, and it would be far more effective to tailor the information for each group. And that way each group could gain, the attention of said group even further. So, yeah. And then because ambassadors and volunteers are different things, I think that there is potential for integration of those two things. But I think that we would it's all about language. We would have to make sure that we differentiate between the two. I don't know if it would entail, we would have ambassador group and then volunteer group, and they work together, or we combined it and just made it clear through language, a volunteer ambassador. That's definitely possible. So we would have, but then the title, would have to probably change. So volunteer ambassador program. And then this last slide is really what needs, I don't know what happened with that font. That's weird. But what really needs to be thought about. So these are all of the things that are needed to build an ambassador program. So you got the purpose, you got the goals, and then the statement of intent that comes from the goals, leadership roles and duties, how we approach the structure of the program, how we recruit ambassadors, marketing items and deliverables, all of those things, surveys and forms and data collection, how that wants to be addressed, and then program-wide language, choice, and voice, which I think's important across the board for anything, but for any like person, it's because it is a persuasive program. The point of a parks ambassador is to get people to engage more with the parks. So we have to ensure that the voice that we're using and all of the, deliverables and marketing tools and things like that has to be tailored so that people are going to want to do it. And then training, development, and all that jazz. But yeah, so I guess that's pretty much it. I think that's it. Yeah, that's all I got. Yeah. Does anybody have questions?
Well, as we like talk, just today, throughout the day, upping our parks and the potential of creating, the garden park. I think having a volunteer, quickly lean towards volunteer ambassador.
Yeah, volunteer ambassador is
it kind of
fine
went
with
there
me.
from your
I
training
like
terms.
that. That's something, it's just something I struggle with. Like language is very big to me, and like to me it's a bit deceptive because when I did that campaign, our ambassadors were paid a little bit. So, if there could be some sort of compensation, figure it out somehow, that would be awesome. And then like, it's problem solved. But, even like, I think we paid them like $100 for 6 weeks of work because it was only like an hour or two a week or something. So yeah, but like, it's just, language is super important.
Obviously, I like the community ownership aspect of this a lot.
Right.
Given the variety of parks that the town will have soon, it would be great to have someone who can explain that to visitors and new residents.
Yeah, the new parks and that would be like, yeah. And usually ambassadors have like some sort of influence in their community already. Like that's the people that, you typically target. So, to recruit. So, we'd have to like figure out I think the recruitment strategy would be a bit something that would need to be like figured out for sure.
And I like how you had it as far as like you had the high school kids, the college kids, and this. But one thing the town of Woodfin could think about is instead of that being the type of park that they're the ambassador of. So you could have like a garden ambassador, you could have a greenway ambassador,
okay.
you could have a blueway
I
ambassador.
like that.
So that way, the people that are fired up on kayaking, you get those people to be the blueway ambassadors. The people that are walking the greenway daily, using
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
And then the people that are like into the gardening and like going more of like what is the use rather than, how old they are or
That's
whatnot.
interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting approach. I haven't seen anybody else really like do that. I saw another one, they did it so that you chose a singular park to represent, but how many parks are in Woodfin? Does anybody know?
Right now, there's just 3 if you count the outside part.
But
So,
with the new ones that we
community center,
have.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the community center, Geneva Manny, and Silverline.
Mhm.
Oh, 4,
And
because
right
Riverside.
Do we have this one, the park right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's on the edge of the inspection.
The dragon up to go.
Okay, cool. Because I saw that on my, okay, cool.
I'm going to have to leave. I made a commitment to my wife, and I'd better keep it on Valentine's Day, so I'm sorry for not missing the Valentine's.
Well, but, if there's nothing else, I can just send this to y'all, and I will also finish articulating because I have a whole thing written out already.
So I think the next step would be, because this is kind of the volunteer management side of things, so the volunteer management subcommittee, maybe coordinate with Zoe on these items, food for thought, schedule a meeting, I'll let you know who those people are. And you can have this conversation with that committee, and then we can talk about it again next month. I think the point of this today was just introduction to what Zoe's thinking and the idea behind the ambassadorship program. And we'll take some time to really coordinate and grow that, and develop that. So this is just your food for thought day, and then we can talk about it again next month.
Yeah, that was my question was, as you put this together, did you have any ideas of what types of ambassadors we might be able to use here? So, but I think Adrian just kind of went over that.
Thank you.
Adrian? ongoing business?
So this is just project manager updates. You heard about what's happening at Silverline, so we'll keep you posted on that. Jason's supposed to get me the plans. I'll send them to you and let you know what the deadline is for any recommendations you might have on that plan. So my main update today is about Riverside and the wave and where we are there. So I haven't seen you since December, so we've been pretty busy with that project. So we had our first bid opening scheduled for January 4th. We only got 2 bids at that bid opening, so we needed 3. So we couldn't open them that day. We had to re-advertise. So we re-advertised, and we had the second bid opening on January 17th. We got the same 2 bids, but we could go ahead and open them at that point. We opened them, and the lowest bid was $2.4 million over budget. So we kind of been back at the drawing board since that day, trying to figure out how to move forward, closing the gap, or whatever other options we might have. And we've had lots of meetings and met with lots of different people, and we finally this week have decided that we need to re-advertise again. But this time, we're going to re-advertise with options. So the wave and the new park, this is generalized, but the wave and the new park, for the most part, will be in the base bid. And then the options will be the renovation of the existing park, some of the paving, one of the put-ins, and we can add that back to the contract once we get the funding for those portions. So our current plan is to advertise again on February 21st. That has to run for 7 calendar days. So we have a bid opening on February 29th. If we don't get 3 bids at that bid opening, because we're treating this as a whole new bid, we'd have to re-advertise again. So we'd do that and plan to go ahead and run that on March 6th to have our final bid opening on March 14th. So with this approach, we're still going to stay pretty well in schedule is our hope. So that's where we are with all that.
So one thing, just to clarify, contracting laws in North Carolina say that if you make a material change to a bid, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to make a quote-unquote material change. So because we have to cut out a big chunk in order to keep the wave on the schedule, that's why we're having to do that.
What if, at the end of all these bids, you still only have 2 bidders?
So that's why if we advertise on the 21st and we don't get the 3 bids, you just have to advertise one more time, and then you can only get 1 bid and open it.
Okay.
You can still choose out of the 2.
You just got to go through the process. Right, gotcha. Okay.
And the state requires that we pick the lowest responsible, responsive bidder. So they have to meet certain criteria, certain qualifications, they have to have certain level of experience. But if all of that is equal, you go with the lowest bidder.
I think it was the Department of Natural Resources, wasn't there still one outstanding study permit that needed to be accomplished, that needed to be
We got the
approved?
biological opinion
That
from
was it.
Fish and Wildlife Service Friday.
And we just got confirmation this morning that they have everything they need to issue our CLOMAR, which is the letter of map revision, so that's.
Once we get that, we can apply for the floodplain. That's our last permit.
So we're like,
So
Awesome.
close.
Yeah.
I was getting there.
And
That was my
flood-
next slide.
Oh, sorry.
And floodplain, is that, who issues that?
County.
county.
Okay, I thought it was a local one.
Yeah.
Can I ask, so the bid that went 2.4 million over budget, lowest bid, did that include the Greenway heading all the way? No, just the park and
It
the,
includes a portion of the Greenway running through the park, but that's not out to bid yet. We haven't
okay,
gotten there
got it,
yet.
got it.
And our rebid takes the portion of the Greenway that's in the renovation of the existing park. It takes that part out, and it becomes one of those options that gets added back in as funding becomes available.
Okay, Riverside Park now. Okay.
We do have, so the 2.4 million was a little daunting, especially because we started with a small gap of about 600,000, so that really raised the gap to about 3 million. We've talked to the contractor, we've talked to the consultants. We think we can get that down to lower the costs through some minor adjustments, value engineering, clarifying, use of different materials that would be perfectly acceptable, that sort of thing. Get that down to about 2.7 million-ish. We have a grant that is pending, an application that we have pending, if approved, would be 1.1 million. So we hopefully can pretty quickly move from 3 million to 2.7 million to 1.6 million. So we hope to know all of that by mid-April, mid to late April. So. Our goal is to try to keep, because the wave can only be constructed during the low flow water months, that's June to September. So we're trying to do everything we can to keep at least that part of the project on schedule so that they can get in the river this year and get that constructed. So that's hence all of this rebidding. And otherwise we could take our time and try to fundraise and just do it again in a year. But we really want to try to keep the wave on schedule.
Well, and have all the bond referendum money's been, because when do those have to be under contract? We still have another couple of years or something, right?
You mean, have we sold the
GA bonds,
bonds?
yeah.
Well, they're out.
Yeah.
We've already, expecting that we were going to be under contract this spring, we've gone ahead and already issued them all.
Okay.
I think waiting would be, prices are just going to continue to go up. And, while the interest is interested, the community interest is there. And it's better to go to press.
It is possible. I don't want to, we are still going back and forth with our partners about how to get this rebid done, because it is a little non-traditional. So there's been some concerns. We're trying to overcome all of that. At this point in time, we are still hopeful that we can keep this on schedule. But it is possible that, we might have to adjust. Also, if we don't raise the proper amount of funds, we may have to, scale the project back at some point and adjust.
So since, are the bids from January 17th, because you're choosing to re-advertise, what if that doesn't go well? Could you go back to the lowest bidder from January and say, let's do it that way?
And we have to rebid, but we know that at least that low bidder is extremely interested in the project, and so we feel fairly confident we will have at least one, maybe two bids, kind of like we did with the first round. And as Adrian said, even if you only have one bid at the end of the day, as long as you do the two bid advertisements, you're fine.
Are just out of curiosity, are the companies that bid, are they local?
They are, and they're both very good companies and both very reputable. We were very pleased, even though we only had two bids, we were very pleased with the two that we got. The second bid, however, is significantly higher than the low bid, so it's, we're thinking that it's probably unlikely that they will rebid.
Like multiple $1 million over.
Wow.
It's kind of a unique project, so. I
Oh,
think
yeah,
there's some
totally.
unknowns.
They're just like, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
How much concrete is that?
There was a lot of contingency.
Oh, yeah.
I think, especially with the work in the river.
Yeah.
You get one massive rain event and it could blow things out and you have to start, so I think the second contractor chose to take a much more conservative route and built in a lot of contingency, that the first contractor, I think, felt a little bit more confident about, so.
Is there any suggestions from S2O about contractors that might not be local that have done this kind of thing before? Or
they shared a list of folks that they know they'd done the work, and, so when we did our sort of pre-work for the bid, the first bid, they were all contacted. We had a list of folks that we made sure knew about the bid when it
Right.
got posted. I don't think we'll go so far with the second round,
Right.
we're a little too far down the path.
So permitting and funding, we've talked about that, so.
So this is.
Sorry. I guess we need to adjourn.
Any other questions about Riverside or the Way?
Thanks.
No, you guys are doing great work, though. Okay, if nobody has any other questions, then we should adjourn.